The Oracle Network.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. I don't think we have any other corrections here.
Oh, where? Want to use the dog part?
I wasn't paying attention. Did you guys say something funny?
Sup, friends?
Hey guys, welcome. I'm Abby.
And I'm Shauna.
And this is Anxious.
And Afraid.
The podcast where we talk about stuff
Spooky things.
and things that make you, that give you anxiety, like conspiracies and disasters and
all the true disasters, right. It's been a while since I've done a tragedy and disaster type thing.
it kind of has.
Who am I?
Well, that'll give you an idea.
Gotta do that soon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what we do. Welcome
Welcome.
if you're new.
And welcome back if you're not.
Yeah.
And we have Roscoe with us again today.
Yes, he's still in the studio, so beware of little noises that he will make.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Listen hard. Maybe you'll catch one.
Oh my gosh. You'll get a prize. Not really.
Yeah, let's spin it and make it a fun thing that people can hear.
So what's been happening with us, Abby?
What's been happening? We actually did have kind of a weird, scary thing happen not too long ago.
Yeah, very, very strange and sad.
And in our own town, it was on a Saturday. It was on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And we were like, hey, let's try and go to the fair because
Let's do things.
we just really honestly want to eat fried food. We are not interested in the rides.
For sure. I wanted my snow cone and my fried joe.
Yeah, we just were like, okay, we'll go there. We'll get some good food. But it was also super hot. So it was just like,
hot.
whatever.
So we were waiting until like later in the evening when it was like dark out because also lights are better that way.
Yeah, I think we wanted to go around 7.
Something like that.
And then at about 4,
Yeah.
I was on Facebook and I got like a news alert. And it said that there was a shooting at the fair.
Right?
And then all of a sudden, all of our friends start posting about it because we live in kind of a small town. So, of course, like everyone you know is at the fair.
Right.
And yeah, a lot of people,
about it.
Yeah, they were like, dude, like gunshot at the fair. Like people were freaking out. Like everyone had to get evacuated.
It was like a stampede of people like just not knowing what was going on. And they're just like running because they're scared.
Right. Because this happens so much in our effing country. Like, of course, you immediately think there's a shooter.
Like
they're
an
here to
active
kill us
shooter.
all.
Yeah.
Like we have to go because that's what our life is now. And
Oh my God, don't
like
even get me
I
started.
can't even imagine being there. That would be so scary.
That would be so scary, especially with kids. Come on.
I know
All
there's
little
so many kids. But yeah, everyone had to get evacuated. It didn't end up being like an active shooter situation. Someone had a gun and it ended up going off in like a struggle or altercation.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, and a woman unfortunately did get shot on accident, like off of a ricocheted bullet, and she got shot in the arm.
In the arm, yeah. But everyone's okay.
Did you hear that she was also at that Las Vegas shooting?
Yes.
Dear God, that poor woman.
Can you imagine? Remember, my mom just flew to Vegas when that happened.
Yeah.
She was actually there on the strips staying in a hotel when it happened.
Dear God.
And it freaked me the fuck out.
Yeah. But yeah, so that happened, and luckily it wasn't worse, but
True.
terrible anyway. And then we were like, well,
Yeah. Do we go or do we not go?
I know we weren't even sure if the fair was open anymore. And then it turned out it was. And we're like, well, let's just try and salvage
I didn't
the
want it
evening.
to ruin my day. I wanted my fried joe and snow coat.
Yeah. And so we still went. But guess what? Everyone else decided to go too. And it was insane.
I've never seen a line that long for the fair ever in my life.
I mean, just searching for parking was the thing.
Nightmare.
It took us the longest. And it was like so tense in the car because it's just stressful in Eugene. There's so many cars. Everyone's so close together.
Right.
We finally get a spot. We can hear, oh my God, what's his name?
Nelly
fucking performing, which was kind of fun.
Yeah, that's
to
why
hear.
everyone was there that day too, because he was a sold out show.
Yeah, so we were rocking out to like our middle school dance songs.
Right, 2000s dream
Yeah, having just the best time walking until we got
to the line.
to the line. And it seemed like it was at like what, at least a block or two long, probably longer than that.
It was just like the whole field long, like almost the whole parking field long.
The whole time we're walking, we're like, we're not standing in this line. We can't possibly stand in this line. And we're still walking to get to the end of the line. And we're
I'm
just
like, wait, let's try.
And Shauna like realized she was the last holdout. And then we were all just waiting for Shauna to give up. And then she finally gave up after standing in the line for a while. And a girl vaped like right in my face. And I was like,
Classy.
cool.
That's classy. So yeah, we gave up and it was a total fail and we never got our food and I'm very sad about it. And
You know, the fair was not meant, it wasn't for us this year.
it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah. And we were like, if the lines are like this out here, what are they going to be like
Inside.
And I think people heard that it was like free to get in for a little bit. And so it just got totally crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, we didn't go to the fair. We ended up going to an arcade the next day to make up for it.
Just to have some sort of fun.
That was pretty fun.
It was fun.
It was hot in there, but it was fun.
Yeah, but I haven't been there yet and I had a good time playing some games and
Got to play. There's all the games, and I got to win a stuffed animal, which
Yeah,
I
there
gave to
you go.
Roscoe.
and I got some candy out of it.
Yeah,
That was a fun time.
That's all you get at the arcade. Like, you only get enough tickets to get like the bullshit prizes. I actually heard this. I overheard these two kids talking, and it just like made my night because I think it was two brothers, and the brother was like to the younger one. He's like, you're probably better off just saving up to buy a saxophone.
Oh,
And I looked around, and there was a fucking saxophone prize.
he was trying to get the saxophone.
And of all the prizes, that's the one he was going for. There's like so many crazy prizes, like probably video games and stuff. And he's like, that's what I want is the saxophone.
Oh my gosh, that's precious. How funny.
Yeah, I forgot to tell you guys about that, but it made my night.
That's cute.
I'll buy you. I almost want to buy you a saxophone. I don't know how much they are.
I know what kind of kid like wants a saxophone.
Are you Lisa Simpson? What's happening?
They're expensive.
Are they?
Oh,
We
I
wouldn't
bet.
be buying him one.
Oh, how much are they?
Thousands.
Oh, okay.
Thousands?
Oh God.
I mean,
come on,
depending on
instruments.
if you want to get a good one. You want to get a good saxophone.
How much do you think the arcade saxophone is worth, though? They probably about the
$50.
cheapest
They have a
one.
Dyson vacuum in there.
What?
Also, yeah, it's up like on one of the top
Oh,
shelves.
they have some decent stuff.
I would have laughed harder if he was trying to save up for the Dyson.
It would take like a million tickets. Oh my god.
Well, anyway. Wow. I
That
did
was-
not realize. I should have looked at the prizes. I just remember when we were young, the top prizes were like, I don't even remember.
Some plasticky
Oh,
stuff.
it was like the clear colored blow up chairs. Do you remember
Oh,
those?
those were the jam.
Yeah, you
I'm
had to
pretty
have
sure
a
I had
lot
a
of
blue
tickets.
one.
Oh, shit. We had a green one.
Nice.
Hell yeah. Your legs stuck to them.
Oh,
But everyone wanted one.
exactly.
That was the 90s. I bet they'll come back.
Oh, for sure.
And beanbags.
Oh, beanbag chairs. I've always wanted a big beanbag chair.
Yeah, we had one too. Those are great. But anyway, that was our time at the fair. That was our time trying to
Go to the fair.
be fun and young.
and it failed. I even think like that night we were like, "Ugh, should we even like get something to eat? And then we just decided that
Oh, that was the whole other thing. We were like, maybe we'll go back and we'll get food. And then the one place we wanted was closed. And then we're like, I guess everything failed and we gave up and parted ways.
Uh-huh.
And then I don't remember what you got, but Michael was like really wanting chicken wings. Apparently there's a chicken wing shortage we didn't know about.
right, I heard that.
He just really wanted chicken wings. So we ended up getting KFC. And then I got super sick from what I ate. And Michael didn't even get chicken wings, or he only got a couple, and they sauced up chicken tenders.
It's not the same.
And threw them in, and they were like, sorry, they were out. So it was like a fail of a night. all
Total
around.
fail. Because then me and Chad like went to like Dairy Queen because I was like, the only thing that's gonna make me happy is an ice cream cone.
I mean, smart. We should have done that.
Right. But then like the other food that we really wanted, they just didn't even hear us ordering it, so we didn't get it.
Oh my God, such a fail all around.
At least we didn't pay for it, but I was upset. So I just ate my ice cream and then I was like, let's just go to bed and end this horrible day.
The only thing left to do is sleep, just crying into your ice cream.
Yeah,
Everyone's had those days.
for sure.
Happens to us a lot. I don't know why. Okay, do we have anything else?
Oh, just real quick before we forget, we do want to warn that we are going to take a week off.
Yeah. So after this episode, there'll be a week without an episode.
Correct. So be prepared for that.
Yeah, I'm going to the coast with my family. So
See, cute.
cute.
That's why.
Girls trip.
Gonna take some time sometimes.
Yeah. So that's why.
Yeah,
But we always forget to tell you, so we're
we
telling
do,
you.
and we try to then post it on our social media so it's not a shock and disappointment to everyone.
We're sorry.
But yeah,
All right. So should we start?
Do you have a story?
I have kind of a long one, so we should probably start.
Okay, what is it?
Okay. So speaking of disasters.
You did a disaster!
You're all excited. I was like, don't give it away in your face.
That's hilarious. I'm so ready for this. What'd you do?
Okay. So disasters are like one of my favorite categories to tell stories about.
Disaster movies and how much we love it and hate it.
And hate it and love it and hate it. So whether by air, by sea, or by land, I am intensely and morbidly fascinated by them.
For sure.
And so today's tale is well known throughout the world, but perhaps most well known in Germany and the United States.
Okay.
One of the most intriguing aspects of today's case is the fact that we have actual audio recordings, photos, and film footage of the disaster.
Eerie.
Making it one of the most publicized and horrifying catastrophes in airship history. Do you have any guesses yet?
Airship history?
Yes, that's your clue.
An airship. Educate me. What's like an airship?
Okay, well, I'll just tell you.
Okay.
So today we will be covering the devastating demise of the Hindenburg.
Oh! That's the blimp, right?
Yeah, well, not a blimp. There's a difference, but
Okay,
yes,
but like
the giant
a
ass
similar thing.
airship.
Okay.
It's a big one, which is why
That
it's a long
is
one.
intense.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
Oh,
like-
I'm here for it.
Okay.
I'm so...
This is a crazy story.
Wow. Wow.
So,
Ugh.
do you know much about it other than, have you seen the footage or anything?
Not a lot of it. I just know fire was involved,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm. Yeah. And I know I said I would look for hot air balloon stories, but
Oh, that's right. This is close.
yeah, I couldn't find just like one story with enough details to do a full episode on. So I thought we would go a few levels past.
This is a good one. I'm excited.
Yeah, all the way to the Hindenburg. So go big or go home.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
So if you're anything like me, you know the very basics of this case. There was a big old airship named the Hindenburg.
Makes
One day
makes sense now.
it caught fire and crashed in a fiery blaze. The end.
Yeah.
That's literally all I knew about it. But there's so much more to the story that I learned from reading a pretty great book called The Hidden Hindenburg by Michael McCarthy. There's actually like a way longer title, but that's the main one.
Okay.
Sometimes they make their titles like 3 sentences long. I'm like,
So ridiculous.
Come on, guys. Yes, The Hidden Hindenburg. And the author also goes on the podcast called Most Notorious to talk about his book in a more condensed way if you, like Shauna, hate books.
Thank you.
But The Hidden Hindenburg is my main source material for today, and I would recommend it. It's pretty good, especially if you want more background info on airships. If you didn't know what that was a whole category.
Now it makes sense to me.
Yes. And there's Nazis involved. Who knew? Yeah, lots of great info. So let's get started. As usual, I'm going to fill you in on some important background info, people, places, things, and such before we get into the dramatic conclusion.
Okay.
Starting with airships.
Okay.
But more specifically, Zeppelins. Does that ring any bells, Zeppelins?
Okay.
Sounding familiar?
Yes.
I don't know about you, but I thought that they were all kind of the same thing. Like the blimps that you see at football games and whatnot.
But smaller.
Right. But of course I was wrong. The biggest difference between blimps and the airships we will be talking about today is that blimps are actually a non-rigid structure. They're basically like a big balloon with a motor.
Okay. Okay. I see.
But Zeppelins have a rigid interior structure and are full of multiple like balloons, basically, to keep it afloat. And that is terribly oversimplified.
Right.
I'll explain more later, but I just want to clear that up for all of us who thought like Goodyear blimps are all the same.
Right.
As a reference point. Okay, so let's talk about Zeppelins. Why the name Zeppelin? Well, that goes back to the guy who manufactured the very first one, and his name was Count Ferdinand Adolf Heinrich August von Zeppelin.
Wow, that's a name.
It's a mouthful. And so we're just going to call him Count Zeppelin.
Count Zeppelin.
This German count was born in 1838 and dedicated much of his life to military service, reaching the level of general. The photos I saw of him featured a slightly portly fellow with a shiny bald head and a giant white walrus mustache. It's quite the look.
Yeah, that is.
Count Zeppelin was fascinated by war and feared the other global powers who could possibly defeat Germany. So, during the American Civil War, he was actually granted permission to come view and study the war as an observer.
Oh, interesting.
To learn of the latest military tactics. And this shocked me because I didn't realize you could just like buy tickets to the Civil War show America was putting on.
Yeah, that's kind of odd.
Isn't that weird? But apparently you can, and he did in 1863. While in the States, Count Zeppelin also had the opportunity to ride in essentially a hot air balloon inflated by coal gas. These were used for reconnaissance missions by the Union against the Confederates, and the contraption was able to lift passengers 600 feet into the air. Ugh. And I feel like I'm scared to get into a hot air balloon now in like current modern times.
Right.
Like, can you imagine doing it then?
No.
Like, people aren't used to just going 600 feet into the air. Like, that's a whole new
like concept.
Yeah.
Ew, no, I don't like it.
Yeah, I'd be like, I'm just going to float away, right? Like, we're all going to die.
Seems so wrong.
Yes. But after this balloon ride, Count Zeppelin had the realization that the next evolution of warfare would be from the sky. Mm-hmm. If Germany didn't stay ahead of the curve with machines that could fly, they would become vulnerable and outmatched in future wars. So the Count goes back to Germany and gets a team of engineers to start working on plans for an airship. The Count didn't really have any of the technical skills required to build or properly design the airship, but he was the driving force behind the idea, and he also had a few requirements for an airship designed for war. It needed to be able to fly against headwinds, or in other words, it needed to be able to fly against the wind. Mm-hmm. The airship needed to be able to continuously stay in the air for at least 24 hours in order to be effective for reconnaissance missions.
Okay.
And the airship would need to be able to lift high above the ground while carrying heavy men and supplies.
Right.
By the beginning of the 1900s, Count Zeppelin, who had now in true rich and powerful man fashion, named the airships after himself, a.k.a. the Zeppelin.
Nice. It's cool sounding.
It is cool. But, like, I don't know if I'd ever just name something after myself. I guess. I don't know. Would you?
No.
Yeah, I don't feel cool enough. I couldn't pull it off.
My name is also not cool.
I feel like it wouldn't catch on if you're like, no, I'm not calling it that. Okay, so yes, now they're called Zeppelins, and his first airship models are made. The early prototypes looked like big floating cigars. They were thin and elongated. The interior differed from other airships at the time because instead of the inside having one large gas cell or gas bag, the Zeppelins had multiple gas cells contained within kind of a lightweight metal cage, which gave the Zeppelins its rigid structure. Then the whole thing was encased in fabric stretched across the metal supports like skin over a rib cage. Mm-hmm. If your lungs were filled with hydrogen instead of oxygen.
Okay.
Propellers mounted on the sides moved the ship quietly through the air while rudders at the tail steered it. It's weird because they're big, but they're kind of not like quiet, but they're kind of quiet.
Interesting.
Kind of eerie. Just like this giant thing floating around.
Yeah.
The gas cells were then pumped full of the highly flammable gas hydrogen, which is, of course, lighter than air, and voila, a floating sausage link.
A floating sausage link.
I feel like men are always making penis-shaped things, aren't they?
Oh, for sure they are.
Yeah. Like the ship that Jeff Bezos just flew in.
Oh, metal dick in the air.
It was fully a dick. It just looked like a dick.
It has a head of a penis.
It had a penis head.
I mean, everyone's making fun of it.
Someone signed off on that and was like, yes.
Makes sense for Jeff Bezos.
I mean, he's like, I am the biggest dick, and I will ride in the biggest
dick. The biggest dick.
To space. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But you just describing that just sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. Like it just sounds so all of the wrong things that need to be up in the sky.
I already have red flags. I have problems with this.
I have all the issues.
Yep. So in July of 1900, the very first Zeppelin rose into the air, but was forced to land after 17 minutes. And then the Count quickly became a laughingstock. The book described him as, quote, the crazy Count with his wobbling sausages.
Ooh, wobbling. You don't want
a wobbly sausage.
That is a true statement.
Yep. But the Count didn't let the haters get him down, and his bloodthirsty warlust kept him going. Soon he was able to keep the ships in the air for hours at a time without refueling, and the ships reliably flew thousands of miles. But Count Zeppelin was getting old at this point, and tired. Sure, his fantasies about dropping bombs on unsuspecting towns from above kept him warm at night, but he needed some new blood to keep him alive. Enter Hugo Echner. He will be a key figure in this story.
Okay.
Echner was born in 1868 in the small Baltic town of Flensburg. His father owned a tobacco and cigar factory, oddly enough, but Hugo didn't want to stay in the family business and instead went to university in Leipzig, where he studied psychology. After earning his doctorate, he tried journalism, but decided it wasn't his bag and instead decided to use his knowledge of human psychology in the field of propaganda.
Oh, interesting.
Yikes. And guess what? He was really good at it.
Oh, no.
He was skilled at manipulation and had zero qualms about lying.
Yikes.
Something that comes up with Echner time and time again throughout his life. Hugo was hired by... Okay, this name. It's very German. I'm going to say it wrong. It's the airship company name. It's like Luftschiffbau Zeppelin Airship Company. I'm not going to say it more than that.
You're doing a great job.
Thank
None of
you.
us can tell.
Cool.
Sounds like German to me.
Yeah.
Yep. I was like, oh, God, there's a lot of vowels and T's. Okay. So he was hired by that company, founded by the Count in 1908, when he was in his early 30s. And Echner very successfully shed positive light and press on the company and its Zeppelins. He did such a great job that he was given the opportunity for a big job promotion. Not really a promotion that made sense or would ever happen today, but Echner was given the chance to become a pilot.
Okay.
They're like, you're so good at PR that we're going to make you a pilot.
That's a leap there. Okay.
Well, I think they're like, we want him to be like our front guy. Like, if he can pull off being a pilot, like, he's our shining, boy that everyone will love or whatever.
Sure.
And this is back in the day before flight schools or like rules were a thing. So
Nightmare.
why not?
Oh, God.
But the crazy thing is, he was actually really good at it.
Oh, dang.
He was an excellent Zeppelin pilot and would go on to earn the nickname the Pope because of his infallible instincts in the air. Cool. In 1909, the Zeppelin Company would found the very first airline in the world named Delog. Its purpose was to shuttle paying customers from city to city, 20 people at a time, all sitting in wicker chairs in a Zeppelin.
Wicker chairs?
Wicker chairs.
Oh, gosh.
Seatbelts, who needs them? I'll just sit in this wicker chair.
Also very flammable, right?
Right? Oh, the most flammable of woods. I don't know. So the crusty old Count, he hated this. He absolutely detested his magnificent war machines being used as a ferry for the regulars,
The regs.
just the common people. Mm-hmm. And he said as much, but he also knew it was the only way for the German military to view the airships as a safe, viable option.
True.
He's like, if this works, then they'll see that these are fine.
Like they will trust it.
These floating bombs are completely fine.
Everything is fine.
Everything's fine. Look, everyone's fine. They're in their wicker chairs and they love them. They assumed, so the German military assumed, and rather correctly, that the fairly slow hydrogen-filled ships would be, easy targets for enemies to shoot down. Fair.
Oh, yeah, because they're big and obvious, right?
They're huge and slow-moving and basically a bomb. So, yeah, I would think you would shoot
complete sense.
But Count Zeppelin's bloody dreams would come true when World War I came a-knockin'.
Oh, fun stuff.
Yes, his favorite. The Imperial German Army ordered a bunch of Zeppelins and used them to bomb the enemy and innocent civilians indiscriminately. So they would take a bunch of bombs and just fly over cities and drop them.
Yeah.
I think the Zeppelins were actually coined as baby killers.
That's awful.
Yeah, pretty terrible. According to the Hindenburg, the first civilian deaths happened in 1915 when a 53-year-old man left his cobbler's shop to investigate a strange humming noise coming from the sky, and a 72-year-old woman was returning from grocery shopping. Both were struck down and killed by a bomb dropped from the Zeppelin. which is so rude. Like, grocery shopping is the worst, and you get hit with the bomb when you're almost home.
That's so rude.
You went through all of it.
Don't even eat the groceries.
Didn't even get to eat the groceries. Yeah, terrible. I mean, you're just walking along. Terrible.
Imagine seeing that in the sky too, especially like if you haven't seen one before, but like how big and slow and terrifying that would be.
The early 1900s. Like, there's probably some automobiles around, but still horses and carriages. Like, weird.
Yeah, that would seem so like...
It's like that weird steampunk era.
Ooh.
You know?
But yeah, that would be terrifying to see in the sky. Like, they would be like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I would be like, what the fuck? They're kind of scary.
Yeah.
And kind of weirdly quiet. Yeah, it's just all very...
It's like a whale in the sky.
Yeah. Slow moving whale.
But not as peaceful.
Not at all. Okay, so let's see. I imagine the Count was gleefully skipping around at this news of, innocent people being bombed, and demanded more blood. He looked a German general straight in the eyes and told him that all of England must burn, and he wanted a fleet of Zeppelins to do it. He wanted the entire city to burn, like this guy.
Jesus, he's thirsty for blood.
He is very thirsty.
Not cool, not chill.
Not chill at all. Meanwhile, Echner is training men to pilot Zeppelins for spying and bombing purposes when he starts working with another important character in our story named Ernst Lehmann, who would become a well-regarded Zeppelin pilot trained by Echner. But as we all know, World War I couldn't last forever, and Germany was defeated. Wah, wah. You know who else couldn't last forever was Count Zeppelin, who died at the age of 78 just before the war ended. And in a move that probably made Count Zeppelin turn in his grave, the victors of the war demanded Germany's airships as part of their war spoils. France got one, England got one, Italy got one, but the Germans blew up the rest. If they couldn't have them, no one else would.
Ooh.
Well, besides France, England, and Italy. But what about America, baby? Where's America's freedom balloon?
Where are we?
We want our big ass balloon.
Hello, it's about us, right?
Yeah. Where's my balloon? Well, America persuaded the Allies to allow the Zeppelin factory to remain open just long enough to build them an airship.
Wait. Before you go, I want one.
On your way out. And then it would close when they were done. And the Zeppelin factory was like, yes, of course, we will do that for you. And then definitely, for sure, shut down when we're done. Wink, wink. And the Americans are like, what? They're like, nothing. So they start working on a new Zeppelin for America. And when they draw up the plans, they make this ship even bigger than the ones before and design it with transatlantic travel in mind. This ship would need to be able to sustain flight for at least 4 days and be able to cross a distance of 5,000 miles while carrying civilian passengers, which would be the furthest a Zeppelin had ever flown.
Yeah, Jesus, that sounds intense.
You're in a balloon over the ocean.
For 4 days.
The engineers weren't even sure if it was possible, but they began building anyway under the leadership of Hugo Echner, who was now co-owner of the Zeppelin company. This new model would be 658 feet long and 91 feet in diameter at its fattest point, the largest airship ever made up to that point, and the prototype for the Hindenburg. One of the most difficult aspects of building such a large ship meant to cross oceans was the fabric being stretched across the massive, lightweight metal frame. It would take acres of cloth to cover it, and that fabric needed to be very durable while also remaining flexible, as it would have to contend with extreme heat and cold depending on what climate it was flying in.
True that.
The work on this cloth was so meticulous, a training school had to be made to teach men how to properly tension it. If they fucked it up, it could be the death of an entire ship and everyone inside under the right conditions.
No pressure.
Right. No pressure. Just stretch it right.
You better tighten that cloth.
Just real good and tight. The technicians had to paint the fabric with various adhesives as well as a secret acetone solution they called dope, which I think is hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
Which waterproofed the fabric and gave it that iconic silvery sheen that we all recognize.
Yeah, we don't want a soggy airship.
Right.
Good point.
I was just going to let her make it. Just stare at her.
Yeah, I was in the middle of a brain fart.
How's she going to end this? You're right. We don't want a soggy ship. And another difficult and extremely dangerous aspect of constructing and operating Zeppelins was, of course, the hydrogen gas used to lift them. Mm-hmm. The workers had to wear rubber-soled shoes and had to work extremely carefully with their tools as not to cause a spark. And, of course, smoking was prohibited. Interestingly, the U.S. had already switched to the fireproof helium gas as their lift gas years previous because of the highly flammable nature of hydrogen. They deemed it too risky to continue to use. The U.S. also had the advantage when it came to helium, as they were one of the only places on Earth that had any. And if you didn't already know it, we are currently running out of helium.
Yeah, you just told me this the other day, which I was like, what?
Yeah, we only have like a finite amount of it on Earth, and go look it up.
We only have it in America?
Only in America.
That's true, though?
Well, this was back then. I think you had to refine uranium to get it, and I think like the U.S. had the most of that and could easily, we like figured out the process to easily extract it.
Interesting.
And so we kind of had like the monopoly on it. And I think I read that Goodyear Blimp, in true capitalist fashion, lobbied to have complete control over it.
Of course.
Because they had, all of their blimps. And so they would sell it, but it's very expensive.
For sure. Okay.
So it's a lot more expensive than hydrogen, and hydrogen is way easier to make. And Germany can make hydrogen up the wazoo.
Okay.
Yes, that's my... got lost. Okay, so we're running out of helium. Go look it up. It's crazy. Okay, so that meant Germany would have to ask America to purchase their helium, and they were not into that. Pride goeth before the fall and all that.
Right.
Many countries working with airships had already witnessed tragic fiery ends to hundreds of people on hydrogen-lifted ships.
Oh, gosh.
But Germany thus far had an excellent track record with their Zeppelins.
Interesting.
They figured out how to build them without often blowing up, I guess. And like I said, hydrogen was way cheaper than helium, and helium only had 93% of the lift power that hydrogen had. So Hugo Echner decided they would be sticking with hydrogen. Never mind that even the smallest leak in one tiny spark could set the entire ship ablaze. But before we talk more about that, let's take a break. And we're back. I hope you all enjoyed your break. So, now it's a few years later and the Zeppelin is finally complete, designed with much more of the civilian travel's comfort in mind, since these were no longer intended specifically for war.
Okay.
The ship had its maiden voyage across the sea planned for October 11th, 1924, and would be piloted by Hugo Echner and Ernst Lehmann. When the day arrived, the ship was filled with hydrogen inside of the hangar and walked out by 200 strong, burly men, who all held ropes attached to the airship, which were used to walk the massive contraption out of the hangar.
Oh, that'd be a sight.
Right? What a job. Once outside, they would be given the order to all release at once, and the Zeppelin would float away up into the sky.
Like when you lose a balloon.
Like when you lose, it's losing the biggest balloon, but on purpose. That's just an insane job. I would feel like I would be like the idiot that like somehow got like wrapped up in the rope and just flew away with it.
Got caught in your wrist and then you're just hanging.
No, it would be the ankle.
Ankle, of course.
Upside down.
Of course.
Yeah, so the ship would cross the Atlantic with no issues in a little over 3 days, which was incredibly fast for the time. About half the time a steamship would take, to make the same trip, which was, kind of the most popular way to travel at the time. So half the time was crazy. The Zeppelin did a little victory lap around New York City and then arrived at the newly constructed, massively gigantic hangar the U.S. had constructed in Lakehurst, New Jersey. They constructed this specifically for Zeppelins.
Cool.
Once on American soil, the ship was named the Los Angeles because it, quote, came to us like an angel of peace. I was like, yeah, just give it a few years. We all know what's a-coming.
Oh, no.
After the delivery of the Zeppelin to America, funding began to dry up at the Zeppelin factory, which technically should have closed, but it didn't. Remember that wink?
Right.
This was post-war Germany, and there wasn't a lot of money to go around. But even still, Echner pushed ahead with plans to build an even bigger Zeppelin, specifically designed for round-trip flights across the ocean. It was 775 feet long and 100 feet wide, and inside were small passenger cabins for overnight stays. They were really basic, but to most people, it was incredible to have that option at all.
Right. That sounds crazy.
They named it the Graf Zeppelin, and if you wanted to fly on it, you had to have some serious coin.
I was going to say, how much are the tickets for this thing?
So for the Graf Zeppelin, tickets started at $7,000 in then money, which
And then money
in today's money
would be so much.
would be close to $50,000 per ticket.
For a flight?
Yeah.
Yuck.
On the Graf Zeppelin's first trip to America in 1928, the ship faced certain peril as it flew through a storm and some of the outer covering fabric ripped loose. If it ripped any further, the ship was doomed. And of course, they were flying over the ocean.
No.
4 men, including Echner's son Newt. I think it's Newt. It's K-N-U-T. I don't think it's Nut. Could it be?
We believe you.
Okay. So his son daringly climbed the metal supports and repaired the covering mid-flight, saving the passengers and crew.
I mean, do you have another choice except
Nope.
for doing it?
You have to grow
Gosh.
the biggest pair. When the Graf Zeppelin, piloted by Echner and Lehman, arrived in New York, they were celebrated with fanfare and parades. The following year, Echner would become massively famous when he flew around the entire globe in the Graf Zeppelin along with 20 passengers who paid $9,000 per ticket for their seats.
Wow. And it went through across the world?
Yes. I mean, they did have like layovers, but
I mean, sure, but like,
Yes.
it traveled around the world.
yes.
Wow.
And the airship averaged about 76 miles per hour, which I thought was pretty impressive. But I guess that probably seemed pretty slow to the passengers on board who wanted to smoke, but were absolutely not allowed to.
Oh, I bet they were going through withdrawals.
Oh, they were jonesing. Many resorted to sucking on lollipops, unlit cigarettes, and empty pipes.
Unlit cigarettes.
I bet they were cranky as hell.
Yeah.
Imagine a bunch of rich people with cigarette
Who
withdrawals.
can't smoke?
Oh,
Are you
God.
kidding?
Ew.
Gosh.
Also, the Graf Zeppelin had no heating, so you would often see the passengers in their warmest clothes and furs as they made their way through the cold regions. Because, like, I think at one point they like flew over like Siberia or something, like really cold, and you're up in the air, so it's probably even colder. Yeah,
Dang.
burr. And you're paying $9,000.
God.
$9,000 for the opportunity to freeze your ass off. But the whole group made it in one piece, and they would dazzle the world with the speed in which they did it. Total flight hours, excluding layovers, were about 12 days, which was a record back then.
Dang.
New York threw Echner and Lehman more parades, and Echner would end up on the cover of Time magazine. Like, these guys were actual, like, celebrities.
Sure.
Especially Echner. Riding high on this wave of fame and success, Echner begins drawing up plans for his next Zeppelin, which would be his biggest yet.
Gotta keep getting bigger.
Yeah. And you know what it's time for. It's time for the Hindenburg, baby.
Ooh, here it is.
This plan was in stark contrast with the rest of the world who were halting their airship developments due to the danger and inherent vulnerability within their designs. Just to name 2. The Zeppelin that was given to France after World War I got blown to smithereens in a thunderstorm and killed all 50 passengers on board in 1923.
Oh my gosh, right? Thunderstorms. Hello?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Wrath of the gods.
Can't control Mother Nature that way.
You
No.
can't. She's like, you like this balloon? I don't.
I zap you dead.
I zap you dead. The Shenandoah, which was an American-built airship, broke apart into 3 pieces midair, killing 14 people in 1924.
Oh my god.
But none of this seemed to faze Echner, and he ordered construction to begin on the Hindenburg. Unfortunately, though, as soon as the builders began working on the project, the Great Depression struck and the whole world suffered.
Yep.
The Hindenburg was estimated to cost $2 million. And that's old-time money. That's then money.
Yeah.
All of Echner's funding had dried up, and he would need to find an idiot with deep pockets. Enter stage left, the Nazis. Were you wondering when Hitler was going to show up? Because I was sure shocked to find out that he was connected to this. I had literally no idea.
Wow, okay.
At this point, Hitler was on his way to becoming the all-powerful Dark Lord he always dreamed of.
Hitler.
Yes, I'm going to be Hitler. But he had risen to power a little too fast and a little too violently. Go figure. He had a public image problem, and his propagandists were tasked with making Hitler more appealing to the public. Which is, wow, what a job.
How do you do that?
Yeah. Well, they did it pretty well, actually, disgustingly. Echner met with Hitler's favorite kiss-ass, brown-noser, and all-around dickhead named Joseph Goebbels, who was the propaganda minister for Hitler's Third Reich. He was a real slime of the earth type guy, driven by his hatred for Jews, and he was about to put Hugo Echner in Hitler's pocket. In exchange for $500,000 to help fund the Hindenburg, Echner essentially sold his soul, and the soul of his company, to the Nazis. The Zeppelins would now feature large swastikas emblazoned on their sides, and Echner would have to do flyovers for cheering crowds over Hitler's conferences and events.
Not cute.
Yikes. But with this new blood money, Echner was able to move forward with construction on the Hindenburg, and he planned on making it the biggest and most luxurious model yet. I mean, if you have to be rich to afford a ticket, the accommodations better be nice for all those bougie booties.
Oh, heck yeah.
And allow me to tell you about some of them.
Please.
First off, the heating had been vastly improved, so passengers would no longer freeze their butts off in the colder climates. The passenger cabins had been expanded to 25 double berth rooms, which could accommodate up to 50 passengers. The cabins were fairly small but cleanly designed. They each contained 2 bunks, a small fold-down desk, a sink with hot and cold running water, which is, wow.
That is luxury.
A small closet, and a call button, which would summon a steward should you need one.
So was it kind of like little hotel rooms in a airship? Like, it sounds like it's like little rooms.
Yeah, like little rooms. Like, you know, like the Titanic, how each one, they all had their rooms.
Yeah, but like for some reason with a ship, it makes sense to me. But like with an airship, it seems so weird.
Same concept, but in the air. It's like...
It seems so wrong.
There's an A deck and a B deck, and, you know, there's different
Like, can
levels.
you imagine if like airplanes these days had like rooms?
Oh, no. I mean, it's because this thing is so massive.
Right.
And slow.
And slow. That's the other thing.
Michael's smart over here.
But yeah, I mean, they had like bunk beds and...
So crazy.
Yeah, actual rooms. Yeah, I mean, they weren't very big. They were pretty
No.
small, but like
So-
to have one at all.
Yeah, it's crazy to imagine.
Yes. There were men and women's toilets located on a lower deck level and a single shower, which passengers said was more of a trickle. I mean, you're in a big floating balloon. It's incredibly flowing at all.
You mean you don't have good water pressure?
Your water pressure sucks on this balloon. On either side of the ship, there were long promenades, or is it promenades? Promenades?
I have no idea. You're asking the wrong person.
All right. That had seating and long rows of windows that could amazingly be opened during flight.
What?
Fucking open the windows.
No.
And passengers could stick their hands out and feel the wind on their hands.
That's okay. Weird.
Wild. One side of the ship featured a large dining room with hand-painted silk wallpaper and lightweight upholstered red chairs. Guests were served 5-course meals at dinner on sets of fine china.
Wow.
It's very fancy. There was also a lounge that featured a 365-pound grand baby piano. Wait, baby grand, said that wrong. Grand baby. Michael's over there cringing. Baby grand piano specifically made for the ship from lightweight aluminum alloy. And then the alloy was wrapped in pigskin, which sounds gross, but it didn't look gross. It just looked like a piano. But still, to have like a piano made specifically to go on airships, they had to make it like really lightweight.
Yeah, makes sense.
Wild. But the piano actually was removed before the Hindenburg's final flight, so don't worry, it survives.
At least we got the piano.
We got the pigskin piano, everyone. We saved it. And on the wall behind the piano was a big old portrait of Hitler.
Oh.
Does not inspire the best music. Just look over.
So gross.
Ugh, gross. And next to the lounge was a small writing room. So cute for like postcards and stuff. The ship also had a massive upgrade in the eyes of many of the passengers because It actually had a smoking room.
Get out of here. How do they even handle that?
I know.
Well, how are they heating anything?
Right, too. How do you heat?
I did read about the heat. It was something about like the air ran over hot water, but I don't remember how the hot water was heated.
Mm-hmm.
It was all by electrical. It was like they used a lot of electric stuff because they couldn't use open flame was prohibited.
Yeah, but still.
But still.
So wrong.
I mean, it goes against all instincts for the right reasons.
Yes.
So you're going to ask me things. I'm going to be like, yeah, it is crazy. I don't have anything else for you.
Okay, valid.
I know it doesn't make sense.
Turns out it didn't end up well either.
Ask Count Zeppelin. I don't know. Okay, so the smoking room, which also contained a bar, fun, was kept at a higher ambient pressure than the rest of the ship. So even if there was a hydrogen leak, the gas wouldn't seep in, which is wild.
So wait, okay, they didn't have lighters
Is there
back
like
then.
an airlock between
It's
the rest of the
airlock.
ship and the... Oh my
Yes,
God.
there-
So do they still have like matches to light the cigarettes?
No, I will explain that.
Okay, good.
Wait, so you have to sit in this airlock while it pressurizes you just so you can go into the smoking area. This is so silly.
And would you believe it's
Nazis.
the most popular room on the ship? Because it is.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, let me explain this. So the room was closed off with a double door airlock, and the room itself was encased in layers of asbestos.
Cute.
So if the hydrogen didn't get you, the cancer might. Wow. Actually, yeah, if you're like around flaming, okay, that probably
It's
wasn't
fireproof.
good.
That's why.
It's all wrong.
Oh, right, fireproof.
Yeah. Even when it's in your lungs, it's fireproof. It's good for you.
Oh, God. And like I said, open flame above the ship was strictly verboten. So the lighter was operated by an attendant, and it was electric. There was one lighter, and it was electric, and someone was in charge of it at all times. And there was a guy at the bar whose like job was also to make sure no one left with a lit cigarette.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I guess, like, on other ships, like, someone had accidentally lit up before, but it ended up being fine. But still, like,
Oh, good.
such a bad idea.
Just one leak.
One leak, that's all it takes.
So stupid.
Stressing
I really
me
need
out.
that cigarette, even though I might blow up the whole thing. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, everyone smoked back then. Like, everyone
Yeah.
and their grandma. Like,
Yeah.
it was so normal, and people probably were, like, didn't understand hydrogen. They're just
Yeah.
like, what's the big what? Upon completion in 1936, 5 years after construction started, the Hindenburg would measure at an incredible 803 feet long by 135 feet wide. I actually saw pictures of it side by side with the Titanic because weirdly it does get compared to the Titanic.
Okay, I
sometimes.
was wondering. I was trying to picture it with the
There was terms like ship of dreams thrown around for the
Right.
Hindenburg, so I was like, very Titanic vibes.
Very.
But they aren't that far apart in size.
Okay, so
It's-
it's the floating Titanic in the air.
Pretty nuts.
Oh
yeah.
my god.
Minus the swastika.
Skybird.
Oh, Skybird. Okay, it took 6 acres of cloth weighing 6 tons to cover the frame. And it's really hard to imagine the scale of this thing. It is absolutely enormous. And it's so enormous that everyone was a little on edge when it came to start the flight tests. Like, is it going to be able to fly?
Yeah.
The moment of truth came on March 4th, 1936, and the Hindenburg took to the skies with no problem and flew for about 3 hours straight before heading back. It was a success, except for one detail noted by one of the workers from the ground. He noticed a slight fluttering in a section of the outer covering, which to you and me is like, yeah, so what? Cloth plus wind equals flutter. Big what? But a flutter can be a very dangerous thing on an airship because where there's a flutter, there's a friction. And friction near gas bags full of hydrogen can spell disaster. It only takes a tiny leak and a tiny spark to make a big boom. And the way the Zeppelins are constructed, beneath the outer covering is the metal frame, which has countless wire cables below it, forming like a net to keep all the gas cells in place. So if your outer cover is not pulled tight and it has a flutter, it can send vibrations down to all of those cables, which in turn also start vibrating against the gas cells full of hydrogen.
Gross.
Does this all make sense so far?
Yeah, that's why you have to have the tight cloth.
Yeah, flutter equals bad. We don't want to flutter. So the engineers decided to add additional layers of that dope coating. Sounds like I'm calling like
Dope.
the dope coating.
Sick.
Sick. So they add more dope to the outer cover and also add additional wires to help stabilize the fluttering. But besides a few mechanical hiccups and one botched takeoff, the Hindenburg had a very successful maiden season. The ship was commanded by Lehman, which was a big blow to Echner, who pissed off the wrong people in the Nazi Party and was removed from any operational control over the Hindenburg and was downgraded to a supervisor.
Ooh.
I mean, it's hard to imagine like things would turn out well for a guy who sold his soul to the Nazis, but
Right. I mean, if they don't like you, then it's bad news.
see ya. And it's just kind of ironic because Echner was the one who pushed so hard to keep this project alive.
Right.
Anyway, so in her maiden season in 1936, the Hindenburg made a total of 56 trips with 17 round trips across the Atlantic.
Wow.
She flew about 190,000 miles and nearly 2,800 flight hours with an average speed of about 68 miles per hour.
Okay.
She carried about 2,800 passengers in total, as well as some crazy freight, including monkeys, guinea pigs, carrier pigeons, exotic plants, and even once carried a 1-ton plane, which is kind of an airplane inside of an airship.
Oh my gosh.
But the story goes that Captain Lehman put his foot down at the request to ship a full-grown elephant.
They could be a little bit too heavy.
They're like, maybe not.
Maybe not that.
Maybe not the elephant. After the success of the first season, ticket reservations were increasing, and Echner drew up plans to modify the Hindenburg to add 10 new cabins. But in order to do this, one of the gas cells would have to be removed and cut down to a smaller size to accommodate the new rooms. Construction began, and the workers deflated the gas cell set to be removed, and when they took it out, they noticed something disturbing. The top of the gas cell was badly scraped and damaged, but not enough for gas to escape. Yet. The next flight season was only a couple months away, and they needed to figure this out, like pronto. The new cabins were added, and the gas cell was repaired. To address the problem with all the wire cables chafing the gas cells, anywhere the wire cables crossed, the workers would tie twine around them and then tape, hoping this would dampen the tremors. They also slapped a piece of reinforcement fabric wherever they saw other areas of chafing in the gas cells. And I don't think passengers would have bought a ticket knowing serious structural problems were fixed with twine and tape. Yikes.
No bueno.
To address the fabric flutter issue, the entire top cover of the Hindenburg was painted with more layers of dope, with the expectation that the fabric would tighten and reduce the flutter. When Captain Lehman found out about the damage to the gas cell in the ship, he had been flying for an entire season. He was absolutely stunned and terrified. He was the most experienced Zeppelin pilot out there, and he had his share of close calls on Zeppelins and understood the gravity of the situation. But his personal life was also in turmoil. He and his wife had just lost their 2-year-old child to a sudden illness on Easter Sunday of 1937, and he was due on board the Hindenburg for her first flight across the Atlantic Ocean of the next season. He wouldn't be there as captain, but was there as more of an advisor. So Lehman felt torn between leaving his grieving wife and then his duty to the Hindenburg, especially knowing the risk involved. He felt that he would be the most experienced person to help if anything were to go wrong. So he made the hard decision to leave his wife, his grieving wife, and told her if anything happened to him, he wanted to be buried with his son. Like, fuck. This is so sad.
Deep stuff.
The Hindenburg had already made her first successful flight of the 1937 season to South America in late March, and now had returned to Frankfurt, Germany to collect passengers on their way to America. A one-way ticket from Germany to America would cost the passenger $400, which is about $7,500 today. Mm-hmm. The ship would now accommodate up to 70 guests, but the trip was only half booked, with 36 passengers, some of those children. There were also 61 crew members aboard. But before we discuss the final chapter of this episode, let's take one more break.
Okay.
And we're back.
All right.
Okay. On May 3rd, 1937, at 8:15 in the evening, the Hindenburg was sent off by a marching band playing church songs in Nazi uniforms.
Cute.
It's a vibe.
Yeah.
Yep. This voyage was captained by a man named Max Pruss, and he had already flown the first trip to South America. Some guests reported that they saw him very little during the trip, and he seemed to be rushed and strained when they did see him. This may have been because Captain Pruss had noticed quite a bit of fluttering on the outer cover of the Hindenburg on its last flight, and had sent an urgent letter to headquarters to inform them of the problem.
And if we all remember, flutter equals bad.
Bad.
Really bad.
Bad as bad. Flutter's bad. But here they all still were, flying to America as though everything is fine.
Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. It's fine. The Hindenburg would face strong headwinds and nasty weather on her way to America across the Atlantic. Because what do we know? She's a frigid asshole. But we love her.
We love her. We got to respect her.
Yes, I love a frigid asshole. So this caused her to slow from her usual speed of about 70 miles per hour down to about 55 miles per hour.
Highway speed, too.
I know.
Yeah.
It still seems fast. Like, if that passed overhead, wouldn't that seem like it was going fast?
No.
No? Is it
So
because of
high
the
up in the
size?
sky.
Like,
Yeah.
the scale makes it seem slower, maybe? I don't know.
I don't know.
But, like, the weird thing about, like, these Zeppelins is that the passengers don't really feel any of this weather. They said they still felt like it was sailing on clouds.
Okay.
And that's because the outer cover is absorbing most of the weather violence, which is making it flutter like crazy, which in turn is rattling those wires against the gas cells. It's like those disaster movies where everyone's like at a party or something and they're all having a great time, but then the camera pans to something insidious happening.
Of course.
Just out of sight that spells doom for all of them.
The epic foreshadowing.
Yes, it's very eerie. On the second night of travel, the winds got even worse, slowing the Hindenburg down to a speed of 37 miles per hour,
Okay.
as the outer covering was soundly pummeled by the punishing winds. Captain Pruss was forced to radio ahead to New York to inform them that they would be 12 hours late. Just before noon, on May 6th, the day of my birth.
It is.
Yikes. The Hindenburg made it across the ocean and neared Boston. All of the passengers excitedly packed their belongings so that they wouldn't miss the flyover of New York City. That morning, the landing field at Lakehurst, New Jersey, had received the weather report for the day. Thunder showers, with average to undesirable flying conditions. Not really what you want to hear.
Not at all. Not the thunder. Nope.
No, I don't want you to bring the thunder, actually. Please. So they arrived a little after 4 in the afternoon. But when they looked down at the field, it was empty of crewmen. Nobody was there to help land the Hindenburg, which, if you remember, involves hundreds of burly dudes helping pull the massive ship to the ground with ropes.
Ah.
This was because the Hindenburg was expected to arrive at 6 p.m., but they had made up some time and arrived 2 hours early.
Oh, okay.
Many of the men who were needed for the landing crew would also be volunteers, as budget cuts had led to reduced staffing at the airfield. Frustratingly, the sky was clear as the Hindenburg waited along the Jersey coastline until they were given permission to land. As the time grew near to 6 p.m., though, the weather started to take a turn, and the wind and rain started up. Now, all the crewmen were assembled on the airfield, but the weather was too crappy to attempt a landing, especially if there was an electrical charge in the air.
That's even more frustrating since they got there early and
they
could have landed.
Yeah, and it could have all been fine.
Oh, that is painful.
2 hours difference, it could have been fine.
That is
It could have been fine.
Oh, I'm so mad. Okay.
Yeah, that's one detail that just really makes... It's just those kind of details in these stories where you're
Yep.
like, it could have been avoided.
So avoided.
Ugh. Okay. So in order to lower the ship to the ground, the crew had to slowly valve gas from the gas cells. The hydrogen dissipated quickly, so under normal conditions it was safe. But you definitely didn't want to try that during a thunder and lightning storm. Mm-hmm. You just don't. So the captain erred on the side of caution and he waited. About 15 minutes later at 6 p.m. as the sun was setting, the Hindenburg received a message from the ground that weather conditions were rapidly improving and landing was recommended while they had a break. From their vantage points at the windows along the promenade, passengers looked down at the landing field. The radio had announced the new landing time for the Hindenburg, and hundreds of cars had arrived to see it, along with several news reporters and family members of the arriving passengers.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Among those was a man named Herb Morrison. He was a radio reporter visiting from Chicago and had been on the field for hours awaiting the Hindenburg's arrival. At around 6:30, Herb began narrating the scene before him. And Herb didn't know it yet, but his recording that night would become one of the most famous broadcasts in radio journalism history.
Oh my gosh, I'm chills all over. Oh, God.
The Hindenburg gracefully glided towards its landing spot on the field and began to valve hydrogen a total of 3 times to reduce its altitude from 600 feet to 300. Captain Pruss and Captain Lehman were both in the control center preparing to land the ship when they both realized something was off. Oh, God. Okay. The tail of the Hindenburg began to feel heavy, as though it was losing lift, which is definitely not something you want during a landing. If the Hindenburg came down at like a wonky angle, it can, damage the ship. So the captain quickly checked the pressure gauges at the stern, but nothing was amiss. All of the gauges were reading normal, so why did it feel like the tail was losing hydrogen? Quick orders were issued in an attempt to balance the ship again. Stored water, called ballast, was to be immediately released in 3 bursts from the stern, dumping more than a ton of water. And you can see all of this, by the way, in the film footage if you watch it.
Okay.
You can see the water being dumped. It's kind of crazy.
Whoa.
As the water was being dumped, the 6 men who were working at the back of the ship were ordered to run to the front in an attempt to shift the weight.
So you just move over there to make more weight.
Yeah, they're like, can you run your buns this way?
Run your buns.
There's 6 of you. That's got to be at least 600 pounds, right? Well, I would hope so.
What's also so frustrating is that it's when it's landing. It's not like during a flight.
Right. They're
it's
so close.
You're at the end and terrible things are about
You're at the end.
Oh my God, okay.
The ship drew closer to the ground, reaching an altitude of 200 feet as the sun set and the skies darkened, and it began to rain. It was now 7:25, and the crewman from the Hindenburg dropped its massive ropes to the men waiting on the ground. The crew quickly ran to grab the ropes, and as they looked up at the looming ship, they could see the excited faces of the passengers crowding around the promenade windows for a better view.
You can see the people's faces.
You can see their little faces.
Oh my God.
The crowd of men, women, and children who had come to see the landing watched the ship come to a standstill as the workers began pulling on the mooring lines. But someone in the crowd noticed something peculiar. A distinct fluttering of the outer cover fabric at the tail end of the ship, followed by a thin line of bright orange flame running along the top of the Hindenburg near the rear tail fin. Others in the crowd began to notice as well, but only seconds after the flame made its first appearance, a great thump and a blinding flash emanated from the Hindenburg, and she burst into flames.
So sad.
This was all captured and narrated by poor Herb Morrison. And before I describe to you what happened, I think it's best for you to listen to the audio first to really understand the gravity and the horror of the situation.
Yeah, okay, this is what I've been wanting.
It's starting to rain again. The rain had slacked up a little bit. The back motors of the ship are just holding it just enough to keep it from... It bursts into flames. Get it started. It's fighting, and it's rising. It's rising terrible. Oh, my. Get out of the way, please. It's bursting into flames, and it's falling on the mooring mast and all the folks between it. This is terrible. This is one of the worst catastrophes in the world. Oh,
Wow. It was like it was nothing.
Oh, 400 or 500 feet into the sky, and it's a terrific crash, ladies and gentlemen. The smoke and the flames now, and the flame is crashing to the ground, not quite to the mooring mast. All the humanity and all the passengers screaming around it. I can't talk to people. There's friends around there. I can't talk, ladies and gentlemen. Honest, it's just laying there, massive smoking wreckage. And everybody can't hardly breathe and talk and screaming. Lady, I'm sorry.
And the people. Okay.
Honestly, I can hardly breathe. I'm going to step inside while I cannot see it. Charlie, that's terrible. Listen, folks, I'm going to have to stop for a minute because I've lost the voice. This is the worst thing I've ever witnessed.
Oh,
God,
the
it gets
trauma.
me every time. It makes me emotional. It's just so sad.
Because it's like a grown man who's like still trying to be polite and
I know.
saying like, I can't talk about this. I'm seeing the worst thing in my life.
Yeah, and having and like knowing he has like this responsibility kind of to describe it, but like
Oh my god.
and it just goes from him being so casual and just like, oh, it's coming to a standstill, and then just oh, it's burst into flames. Like it happens so fast.
That is intense.
And that's where that famous like, oh, the humanity line comes from.
Oh, okay. Yeah, when I heard that like crushed my heart.
Ugh, it's so hard.
Oh man.
And like you guys, I'll try and post the video like of the footage as well. It's just
It's intense.
unreal. It's unreal.
It's wild.
It's wild that it was captured like that. You can see it in such a long time ago. It just feels like it's otherworldly.
It's true. And it just like burst into like nothing, just skeleton so fast in a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
It's wild.
So it's hard to describe the swiftness and like just absolute horror of the Hindenburg's demise without watching the film footage.
Yeah.
But I'll try and describe what happened. So you can imagine the shock and devastation coming from the crowd of onlookers.
Yeah.
But just try and imagine how those people aboard the Hindenburg felt. Within seconds, they are thrown into chaos. As the tail bursts into flames, it quickly began to lose altitude, sending the tail quickly to the ground, which caused the entire ship to slant at a steep angle. The horrified passengers were thrown to the ground and began sliding across the floor, hitting walls and piling up on each other. People began jumping out windows while still high up in the air, preferring to take their chances with gravity over fire.
Oh my god.
As the tail end of the ship crashed to the ground, a fiery blaze was sent coursing through the ship, eating its way towards the front in mere seconds. The nose of the Hindenburg now began to dip as well, as the entire ship came crashing to the ground in a fiery inferno, flames eating away at the outer cover, exposing the ship's internal metal structure. Inside the electrical room, which had no windows, stood a man named Philip Lenz, who was unable to get the only door open as the heat became unbearable. But just at the last moment, the door burned completely through, and Philip was able to escape with his life.
Stop it. Someone survived that?
Girl, it's insane how many people survived this.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I'm shook. Okay.
Seeing the footage, it just doesn't seem like you could.
No, absolutely not. I was convinced there was no one.
Yeah. The captains were able to escape from the busted out front windows of the control room, but not without being severely burned first. Horrified onlookers watched as tiny black figures emerged from the fireball that had once been the Hindenburg. Many of them ran out between the red-hot metal struts, now exposed after the outer covering burned away, injuring themselves horribly in the process. People were seen running away from the wreckage half naked, as much of their clothes had been burned away during their escape.
This is even more horrific.
I know.
Like when you're watching like alive burning people.
Yeah.
Oh my lord. Okay.
One poor man ran out of the flames and shouted, "I'm all right," before falling down dead where he stood.
Oh.
Those who ran away from the blaze against the wind had favorable chances of survival, but those who ran with the wind were consumed by the flames, unable to outrun the inferno.
Yeah, no way. Oh gosh.
The Hindenburg had taken years to complete and was utterly destroyed in less than 60 seconds.
Yep.
Less than a minute.
That's
It's just insanity. Mm-hmm. And your chances of survival were completely based on luck and where you happened to be when the ship went down because of how fast it happened.
yeah, seriously, seconds. Oh gosh. Okay.
Those who were in the tail end most certainly perished, while the majority of the people were actually at the front of the ship, and a lot of them miraculously escaped and survived.
That's crazy.
Watching the footage, it's insane to believe anyone could survive. I mean, if you watch the footage, I'll show it to you again, but if you watch where like the ship crashes to the ground, you can see tiny, like little tiny figures of people running out of it.
Oh my gosh, okay.
As it hits the ground. It is just insane that they're alive. Like, I can't believe it.
I didn't notice that. Okay, okay.
You just see this huge fireball, and you're like, how could anyone live?
No.
It's crazy.
That is wild.
Even crazier still were the brave men on the ground who ran towards the blaze in an attempt to help those still trapped inside. Oh. I think there was a lot of Navy men there.
Yeah.
And you can see in the video, they're all running towards the flames. It's just like, oh,
yeah, that's terrifying.
Good Lord. They should all get medals. In totality, there were 97 people aboard the Hindenburg, 36 passengers and 61 crewmen. 13 passengers and 22 crewmen would lose their lives that day in one of the worst ways I could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
Sadly, one of the men on the ground holding the mooring ropes also caught fire and perished.
Oh, bummer.
Captain Lehman was initially able to escape the Hindenburg, but was burned so badly that he only survived like about a day longer in the hospital. Mm. Like they were the ones that escaped from like the what is that called? The bridge. And there was windows all around it, and they ran through the windows, but like his back was all burned.
Oh, I can't even imagine the pain of being like so burned.
I didn't put them all in because I can't handle burn victims. Like, it's
That's
just
intense.
The worst kind of thing. And like one girl was only like 15, and like just young people too and they just, I mean, back then they were like, the most we can do is hope that they die fast.
Oh gosh, right. Oh gosh.
Because like what can you do? It's terrible.
That's awful.
So back to Captain Lehman. So he was only going to live a little bit longer, and he whispered to a priest his final request, which was to send his love and his goodbye to his poor wife, who just lost her husband and her baby.
Oh my God.
In a matter of weeks.
No.
I can't imagine. In the aftermath of the tragic event, the Hindenburg lay in a smoldering pile of twisted metal and debris. An investigation as to the cause of the accident would soon be underway. Hugo Echner would first receive news of the disaster via telephone while he was in Germany. He quickly began churning out theories to shift the blame away from himself, knowing full well that he was offered the chance to switch to helium by the Americans, but he refused. Echner tried to say that there was possibly sabotage afoot. Perhaps someone had detonated a bomb from within. He also tried to make it seem like it was all of America's fault for hoarding their precious helium from Germany, clearly lying through his teeth. And it would come out later that he was lying through his teeth, and that's embarrassing. Because the Americans were like, no, we definitely said that you could have some, or you could buy some, and you didn't want to, so that's you. He's desperately trying to save his ass and lessen the embarrassment for Germany and Hitler, since the Third Reich had bankrolled the Hindenburg. So this is massively embarrassing for Hitler, too. Mm-hmm. Especially since it's so publicized. They have radio, they have film, they have pictures. Like, it's huge. Everyone saw it. Echner would travel to America in the following days as part of an investigative team to determine the cause of the accident, which was conducted by the Commerce Department, since air travel was so new they didn't even have the FAA yet. The investigative panel begins conducting a hearing with almost 100 witnesses from the disaster, including passengers and crew members, some of which were still in the hospital. I'd be like, fucking leave me alone.
Right?
I'm a burn victim. God, can I have a moment? The panel watched and rewatched all of the film footage captured from that day and spent weeks investigating, but in the end, they never came to a solid conclusion. A few theories were proposed, such as the sabotage angle, and another theory provided once again by Echner proposed that when the Hindenburg circled the airfield in preparation for its landing, the captain turned too sharply, which could have possibly snapped loose one of the wires holding the gas cells, and then the flailing wire tore a hole in one of the gas cells, causing a hydrogen leak into the air, which, could have held a static charge from flying through the stormy conditions, which caused an explosion.
Right.
Some of the crew were offended by this theory, as it clearly was attempting to place the blame on the captain instead of structural error, and Echner wasn't even present for the accident, so they're just like, dude, shut up. You weren't even here. You didn't see it. Hugo Echner was attempting to stay far away from any of the blame, even though he knew full well about the damage to the gas cells found after the Hindenburg's first flight season. It was also proposed that if a gas cell had ripped somehow, the high velocity at which the gas escaped through the fabric could have caused enough friction to ignite itself. Mm-hmm. There is also obviously the theory pushed pretty hard in the book, The Hidden Hindenburg, that the vibrations from the fluttering cover passed along the wire cables rubbed against the gas cells until the fabric finally gave way and caused a leak, igniting the electrically charged air from the thunderstorm.
Right.
But sadly, we will never know the true cause of the accident that killed 36 people on May 6, 1937. Although the destruction of the Hindenburg would pretty much spell the end of an era for rigid airships.
Yeah.
Airplane technology had already begun to surpass airships in speed, costs, and safety, and as we know, became the chosen type of commercial air travel.
For sure.
And that's all I have.
Oh, girlfriend, I am overwhelmed.
Whew.
That is intense, and thank you so much for that.
But all in all, there was more there's more survivors than there were deaths, which is just insane.
Bonkers.
If you see the footage, it's just insane.
I'm definitely gonna watch it over and over again.
Yeah, I mean,
just to see more that I didn't notice. But yeah, no, I didn't know, and I would not even think with looking at that footage that anyone survived that.
I didn't. Yeah, I think just before I read the book, I didn't think anyone did.
That's crazy.
And I feel like watching the footage really like makes it real because you can read about something and see pictures, but when you see like actual video and like the audio,
yeah, that makes it so real life.
God, the audio with like the screaming, you can hear the screaming start, and it's just like Jesus Christ.
That is so heartbreaking.
Devastating.
Wow, that's intense.
I'm tired.
Me too. I'm sure everyone else is, but what a classic tragedy.
What a classic 2-hour long episode for Abby.
Also that.
Traumatizing the rest of the world.
Also that.
I share my trauma with all of you. What else? What do we got? Oh, it's time for City of the Week.
Let's do it. And that is Appleton, Wisconsin.
Appleton. Why are you so obsessed with us, Appleton?
Coming through again.
Oh, I love you guys.
That's awesome. Thanks, everyone there.
Thanks for not leaving after my cheese with your Appleton comment.
That's right.
I would have left. Thanks for sticking with us. I'm sorry.
Second shout out to them. Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We love you. I hope you liked this trauma episode.
We love to share the trauma.
That we do. And bond over it. Trauma bonding.
Trauma bonding. Okay, and then we also have another review.
Oh.
Okay, so this one appears to be from Ireland?
Ireland.
Oh. Get out of town.
Hello, Ireland.
Get out of this country, actually. But
actually, come here. We love you.
Well, I just meant like it's not our country.
I know, crazy.
It's wild. I love it. And they gave us 5 stars. Very much thank you.
Hell yeah.
And they said, just found these gals and I wish I'd found them sooner. Aww. Beautifully edited
Michael.
and researched. This podcast is perfectly mixed of giggles and seriousness. It's very true. On my way to binge the rest of the episodes with a little heart emoji.
Oh,
that's awesome. Thank you.
And thanks for that Michael shout out because he needs to be appreciated too.
He does a lot of hard work for us.
He does. Silently in the background.
It's very
while
true.
Also ordering food and looking at food. He can do it all. What else? Are you listening or watching anything you want to talk about?
You know, a lot of new music came out like this Friday, I think. And so like been listening to the new Billie Eilish.
Love the new Billie Eilish.
She's amazing. New Bleachers too. That's just me.
Yeah.
But very good stuff. Those are the new stuff I've been listening to.
Yeah, and I showed you the Doja Cat new album, which is really good too.
That's right, and I liked it.
Yeah. Really
cool.
Good stuff.
Very cool stuff.
Go check out some music, you guys.
Yeah, music is still hip-hopping in.
Until you said that, and now it's all dead.
I know.
Well, I think that was it, right?
I think so. I'm starving. Let's get some food.
Let's get out of here.
So, good episode, Abby.
Thanks. Good night, guys. Bye. All right, I got my source material from The Hidden Hindenburg by Michael McCarthy, the Most Notorious podcast, Wikipedia.com, and airships.net. Our music is by Broke for Free and Matt Edwards, and we are edited by Michael.
All right. Should I list our social needs?
Please do.
We have a lot of our things at Anxious and Afraid the Pod. So that's our handle for both of our Facebook page and group, along with our Instagram and Gmail.
We have a Twitter at AA the Pod.
You can support us on patreon.com/anxious and afraid.
If you do that, you get some pretty nice perks. You get ad-free episodes that are released a whole day early, and you get a free sticker.
You can also support us for free if you can't do any of that by leaving a rate review. You subscribe to the show, tell your friends.
Yeah, we would appreciate all of it too right now.
Anxious and Afraid is partnered with the Oracle Network.